Hi, my name is Morgan, and the scientific and common names of the species I am defining are the Culex quinquefasciatus mosquito, which is commonly known as the southern house mosquito.
My name is Kate, and I will be defending the Aedes albopictus mosquito, also known as the Asian tiger mosquito.
The Culex quinquefasciatus mosquito is more alive during the nighttime, therefore, they prey on blood. This is the most common type of mosquito we all grow up hearing about, especially as kids playing outside at night, in the spring, in the summer. We all became familiar with this at some point. They are found within the southern parts of the world and are more commonly found within moist tropical climates such as Florida. These insects are brown in color and are not super large in size. With all of that being said, these insects found their way over here several years ago on ships. They are believed to have made their way across sea on slave ships and within airline cabins. They are typically found in the southern parts of the United States, like I mentioned, Florida, as well as some parts of Texas. These eggs are laid with about 100 others at a time in a really small, tight group. In addition to that, the females of these eggs normally lay them within water, and if the water evaporates before the eggs reach their larval stage, these eggs die. Most of these insects in the larval stage, after 5 to 8 days, enter the next stage, which is the pupal stage, where they are there for about a day and a half and then become adults. All of these time frames obviously depend on temperature in different climates, so it potentially could look a lot different for them. The adult insects range from about 4 to 4.5 millimeters long, and it is proven that after these insects mate, the female and male both have tendencies to feast. It seems they both seek out what's called a sugar meal from a plant, and then the female goes and seeks out a blood meal in which she then digests and lays her eggs as a whole new cycle starts. As I previously mentioned, these insects feed at night, in which they prey on human blood, which is why I made the point that these mosquitoes are the ones we typically grow up hearing about. For example, I was a stubborn kid who would never wear insect repellent and would even end up with about 5 mosquito bites each night. As I've stated, these insects feed on humans, therefore, they have a negative impact on human society. In addition to that, they also transport and carry different diseases and viruses, which have a negative impact on society. They tend to carry these diseases by feeding on birds and then infect humans when they choose to prey on their blood. This relates to impacts on human society as well. But a unique characteristic I found on these insects was the fact that in some tourist towns, these insects are what negatively impact their economy. Many of these insects have kept people from coming into certain parts of the world because of the fact that they bite and spread certain diseases. It's crazy to me to think that something so little can have such a bigger impact on society.
The Aedes albopictus, also known as the Asian tiger mosquito, preys in broad daylight, feasting on blood. This species finds warm climates to be home, however, they have the ability to adapt to cooler climates, making their spread easier. Populations of the Asian tiger mosquito that are located in tropical, subtropical areas are active the entire year, whereas others are affected by seasonal temps and photoperiods. The mothers lay eggs towards the end of the summer and the beginning of fall as the days are getting shorter in order for them to survive the winter. This species is known to carry and transmit viruses such as dengue and chikungunya. There are more viruses and diseases these small insects can transmit, making them dangerous to human health. In 1985, there was a report of this species in Texas, and since then they have spread to the north and east, occupying 32 states. The spread of this species can be accredited to the moving of used tires along highways. Studies have shown that this particular species prefers to feast on human blood but will settle for animals, birds, amphibians, and reptiles. The females are known to bite their victims aggressively with a preference for being outdoors, yet this species is not afraid to travel indoors to find a meal. A study showed that these insects are able to survive out indoors with access to ornamental plants as a food source. Seeing as this species is able to feast indoors and outdoors during the day, and most humans are participating in society, they ultimately receive an abundance of opportunities to feed. As I mentioned previously, the Asian tiger mosquito has been found to transmit a number of viruses and diseases, making them a risk to humans, which they prefer to feed on. Being bitten by this particular mosquito can ultimately lead to a reduction of quality of life. We have witnessed firsthand the impacts that some of these viral infections have on our populations, such as Zika and West Nile. Another factor that these insects impact is outdoor activities and playtime for children, which can eventually lead to cases of obesity, which overall, these insects are able to transmit a variety of viruses and diseases, causing there to be an unknown, making them slightly more intimidating than the average mosquito.
Well, since the Aedes albopictus mosquito prey in broad daylight, it is clearly easier for them to be seen. Therefore, humans can avoid these insects easier. In addition to that, the Aedes albopictus mosquito can prey inside and outside, in the fact that these stand out due to their white markings on their body. I feel it is much easier, again, to avoid them indoors and outdoors. Also, the larval stage process is much quicker for the Culex in comparison to the Aedes mosquito. Therefore, many more of these Culex mosquitoes are produced in shorter periods of time, which gives them more opportunity to have a dangerous effect. The Culex carries fatal diseases and viruses which affect humans, and with there being a higher number of them, humans are more in danger. It is proven that because this insect is a carrier of the lymphatic filarious disease, there has been about 40 million within Southeast Asia, South America, and the Caribbean harmfully affected due to the immense amount of these insects. In addition to that, because of how easily these insects travel and the fact that they carry what's called the St. Louis virus, there have been very many mortalities, sicknesses, and economic declines. Um, in addition to that, it seems that the Aedes albopictus mosquito will kind of settle for other things like reptiles, animals, and amphibians instead of just humans and birds, which gives humans a less likely chance of being targeted. Therefore, since the Culex mosquito preys on birds and more often human blood, humans are more at risk.
Although the Aedes albopictus does have a unique appearance that is easily distinguishable, the factor that sets it apart from the Culex is that it feeds in broad daylight. They may be more visible during these times, however, there are far more humans that are awake, traveling, working, etc. We are far more active during the daytime, especially outdoors, which is where the Aedes albopictus prefers to find their hosts. The Aedes albopictus eggs are also drought resistant, giving them far higher chances of surviving to the next stages of life over the Culex quincunfasciatus. Although the short lifespan of the Asian tiger mosquito can be seen as less threatening, they are able to obtain viruses for longer periods of time, causing them to have far higher infection rates many days after ingesting the infection. This factor is what is frightening due to the fact that this specific species can spread both chikungunya and dengue. Contracting dengue has led to more serious problems, including death. At first glance, the Asian tiger mosquito may be viewed as a lesser threat. However, it is considered to be one of the top 100 invasive species. Overall, the Asian tiger mosquito is able to adapt very well, making them practically unstoppable. Their versatility is what makes them so dangerous.
Although the Asian tiger mosquito can potentially lead to death, the Culex mosquito has a multitude of other impacts on humans. For example, another big impact this mosquito has on humans is the fact that they are expensive and very strenuous to control. They are more complicated to identify due to the fact that they are less visibly seen in comparison to this Asian tiger mosquito. Um, which, yes, it may be easier to find more hosts throughout the daylight, but a majority of humans are able to distinguish what is a friendly insect and what is not, unless it's nighttime. Therefore, the Culex mosquitoes, again, are more harmful. These mosquitoes are also more invasive and are accidentally transported, which I previously mentioned just with ships and airline carriers. They are harder, therefore, to prevent and control, which can also be extremely dangerous to humans due to the fact that they are just harder to get hands on.
It may be noted that the Culex species is harder to spot during their hours of feeding. However, what makes them less detrimental to society is that they prefer to feed on birds, whereas the Aedes albopictus prefers to feed on humans. The house mosquito will bite the occasional person, with their main source of food coming from birds and some animals, making it less likely that they would pose such a threat as the Asian tiger mosquito possesses. Not only that, they have the ability to breed nearly anywhere they please, as long as there is a fraction of water available. They tend to lay eggs near people and could even lay eggs within your home, seeing as the housefly needs an abundant, stagnant water source to lay its eggs in order to hatch, and they thrive outside. They have fewer chances to feast and infect their human host than the Asian tiger mosquito.
To conclude, the Culex quincunfasciatus mosquito is commonly known as the southern house mosquito and is extremely dangerous to humans. The insect tends to thrive during the nighttime, feeding off of human blood and infecting many different viruses and diseases. With that being said, it also is much more difficult to see these insects due to the fact that when they are on the hunt, it is dark outside and humans can't avoid them. Due to the fact that these insects are produced in larger amounts, there is a severe amount of them being transported around the world, which is killing humans, the economy, and tourism. The species I defended is used in research in a multitude of different ways. For example, due to the fact that these insects carry so many different diseases and viruses, researchers are constantly having to study how what these mosquitoes are infecting into humans is affecting them, their mental health, their physical health. These mosquitoes are important to study because these insects are dangerous and a threat to not just humans, but also society. And with that being said, the more that we know and study, the better researchers can provide information on how to bring about public awareness, cures to the diseases and viruses they carry, and control them. The more we know, the safer we will all be.
In conclusion, the Aedes albopictus, more commonly known as the Asian tiger mosquito, is capable of obtaining and transmitting at least 22 different viruses/diseases. Seeing as they occupy a vast amount of the world, thriving in heavily populated areas, they pose a threat to their main food source, humans. Although they have unique appearance, they still maintain to go under the radar in order to receive their next blood meal, which could lead to worse. Overall, whether or not they possess any arbovirus at all, they ultimately decrease the quality of life in areas they reside in. The Aedes albopictus has been used in research in which it is concluded that they are both capable of maintaining infection for far longer than the culex, as well as being able to make genetic copies of their infection. This finding is what makes them one of the most dangerous mosquitoes that we are faced with. The study of this species is crucial to be able to not only understand what exactly we are up against, but how they can be stopped. Although we tend to think of mosquitoes and their bites as a simple nuisance, there is potential for them to have long-lasting effects more than just a simple itch. The more we know about the species, the better we will be able to combat the problem at hand.